Good to see everybody. Thank you all for being here. This is week 2 as we've started to take a look at the book of Job. So we're going to look at just some of the things that we have already talked about, just to kind of get us ready to move on into the next section. And hopefully what we're going to look at today is chapters 3 through 5 would be Job's opening Job's opening response, and then the response of one of the friends. We kind of answered the big questions, or tried to answer the big questions last week as far as introduction of who, what, when, where, why, and I just want to kind of hit on 2 of those today. The what, we need to remember this is wisdom literature, right? How to live life. It is packaged in that in our English Bibles with places like Psalms and Proverbs, Ecclesiastes. The same in the Jewish Bible, in the Hebrew Bible, in the writings. They're all right there together. When we think of wisdom literature, Proverbs would jump right up to the top of going, this is wisdom from Solomon. And Proverbs kind of sets the stage of, these are general principles of how life works and how life will work for you. They're not, and I hope this doesn't hit anybody wrong, I don't think that these are absolute guaranteed promises, because we find things in there that don't necessarily bear out in the lives of others. One of my favorites, and I don't remember exactly where this is in Proverbs, of going, whoever fears God, whoever loves God will prosper and see long days. And I think, okay, then there's Jesus. Not necessarily wealthy and didn't live all that long, comparatively. And you think of the disciples who come after, those who are martyred, but these are general principles. Where again, the wise man looks and he goes, take a look, those who work hard will prosper, but we also know people who work incredibly hard who don't. But these are general rules. So Job is almost sets up as, this is what life looks like when the Proverbs don't come true. With me? Proverbs is this general rule, and this is how things work, but when it doesn't work the way that we think it does, this is where Job kind of falls in. It is literature for this is how we live a life that follows God. All right? So that's kind of our recap of chapters 1 and 2. Go something like where the stage is set. God and his divine counsel. Someone from that divine counsel, we believe, or I believe anyway, and you may differ with that, comes and says, okay, hold on a minute, what about this Job fella? God's the first one to bring him up. Have you considered my servant Job? He's righteous, he's blameless, he's the guy. And the one who kind of plays the adversary here says, but you know why that is. You've built this hedge around him. You're protecting him. If you remove that, he's not your guy anymore. And that's the whole question. I think that's the entire question of the book of Job. Does Job fear God for nothing? Will Job fear God for nothing? And if we kind of have that in mind, we see that as the book progresses, and we have this tension of what's Job going to do. Now, Job has already come up with a couple of sayings that I hope we hang on to. Chapter 1, verse 20 and 21. This is right after the death of his children, the loss of his property, and the news comes to him, and Job says, naked I came from my mother's womb, naked I will return. The Lord gave, the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. And then right behind that, the narrator says, and in all this, Job did not sin or charge God with wrong. And the loss of his health, there's another place. Right after the second round, if you touch him, he'll curse you to your face. And Job has all these boils, and his wife comes and says, listen, enough, right? Curse God and die. And he says, you speak as one of the foolish women would speak. Shall we receive good from God, and shall we not receive evil? In all this, Job did not sin with his lips. So we've got twice already that Job has said, absolutely. But the question is, will Job serve God for nothing? The question is, or the answer is, yes. And then we move to chapter 3. So Job's friends have come. They have, when they see him, they don't even recognize him because of the condition he's in. And they sat silent with him for 7 days. Then Job speaks. So let's read chapter 3. After this, Job opened his mouth and cursed the day of his birth. And Job said, let the day perish on which I was born. And the night that said a man is conceived, let that day be darkness. May God above not seek it, nor light shine upon it. Let gloom and deep darkness claim it. Let clouds dwell upon it. Let the blackness of the day terrify it. That night, let thick darkness seize it. Let it not rejoice among the days of the year. Let it not come into the number of the months. Behold, let that night be barren. Let no joyful cry enter it. Let those who curse it curse the day, who are ready to rouse up Leviathan. Let the stars of its dawn be dark. Let it hope for light, but have none, nor see the eyelids of the morning. Because it did not shut the doors of my mother's womb, nor hide trouble from my eyes. Why did I not die at birth, come out of the womb and expire? Why did the knees receive me, or why the breast that I should nurse? For then I would have lain down and been quiet. I would have slept. Then I would have been at rest with kings and counselors of the earth who rebuilt ruins for themselves, or with princes who had gold, who filled their houses with silver. Or why was I not as hidden as a stillborn child, as infants who never see the light? There the wicked cease from troubling, and there the weary are at rest. There the prisoners are at ease. They hear not the voice of the taskmaster. The small and the great are there, and the slave is free from his master. Why is light given to him who is in misery, and life to the bitter in soul, who long for death, but it comes not, and dig for it more than for hidden treasures, who rejoice exceedingly and are glad when they find the grave? Why is light given to a man whose way is hidden, whom God has hedged in? For my sighing comes instead of my bread, and my groanings are poured out like water. For the thing that I fear comes upon me, and what I dread befalls me. I am not at ease, nor am I quiet. I have no rest, but trouble comes. I've got a question. Job gets word of the loss of all of his wealth and of his children. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Job loses his health. Shall we just receive good from God and not evil? And then we have him in chapter 3. What's the difference? I don't know for sure, but I have an idea. Time. The friends come and sit with Job in silence for 7 days. Now, that very well could be 7 days, just a full week, or it could actually represent a period of time that comes to completion when he couldn't stand it anymore. Job speaks. You would not know this to look at me, but I do actually own some exercise tapes. I've watched them all, and they've done me no good. I don't know. There's always a break between. I can always go get some popcorn and ice cream, but they've been pretty good. But one of them, and I like I say, I don't remember the names of them, but one of them, each of the sets of exercises is in 60 seconds. And the thing that they keep saying in this, that I've never been able to do, but they say that I can, is that you can do anything for 60 seconds. And of Job of going, you can endure anything for a short amount of time. And it may be easy for Job at the beginning of this, as difficult as his losses are, it may be easy immediately for the knee-jerk reaction of, all right, the Lord gave, the Lord takes away, blessed be the name of the Lord. Or even, we've received good from God, and now there's evil, We're gonna receive that too. But when it continues to go on, now Job says, okay, now what? I hope we can hear the emotions of Job in that opening statement. There are three major questions. Some will say there are three major questions that Job asked. Why was I born? Or why was I conceived? Why didn't I die at birth? And why can't I die now? Now, I don't want to read in a lot at this point into Job and what Job's thinking. There's a lot of debate among commentators and scholars about what Job sees as possibility of an afterlife. I don't know that that's really seen here. What Job is speaking from is what I think is what it looks like from experience. As Job is someone who has no doubt been influential in his community and has probably been at the side of several people who have buried loved ones. And it looks like that whether they are kings or they are prisoners, they are at rest. And that's what Job's after. I just want this to stop. All right? Job, this in the beginning, in the heading of my Bible, it says the lament, right? Job laments his birth. I hope we're familiar somewhat with this idea of lament, the questioning and the asking of God of why. And that's kind of what we see here. This differs some from other laments that we may be familiar with. One of the first ones I thought of was Psalm 13. Is a relatively well-known lament psalm. Relatively short. How long, O Lord, will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me? How long must I take counsel in my soul and have sorrow in my heart all the day? How long shall my enemy be exalted over me? Consider and answer me, O Lord my God. Light up my eyes, lest I sleep the sleep of death. Lest my enemy say, I have prevailed over him. Lest my foes rejoice because I'm shaken. But I have trusted in your steadfast love. My heart shall rejoice in your salvation. I will sing to the Lord because he has dealt bountifully with me. The difference that we see in Job's lament in chapter 3 and the lament psalm and this one and so many other lament psalms is that at the end of the psalms, there's always a declaration of, but God's going to take care of this. And we don't hear that in Job chapter 3. We hear Job just saying, this is it. Why won't this end? There's a lot of things. Again, this is very poetic language. But it also calls, almost as Job is calling for God to reverse creation. Maybe not all of it, but it's certainly the day of his birth. If you go all the way back to Genesis chapter 1, and you have darkness over the face of the deep, and the first thing that God says is, let there be light. And what Job says, as far as the day that I was conceived, the day I was born, let there be darkness. If this is all that I'm here for, why am I here? When he says those who will rouse up Leviathan, there's a lot of this that I don't understand and probably never will, but it seems as if, and the Leviathan is mentioned again towards the end of Job, God will talk about him, that this is what is seen as the chaos before creation, that God has tamed the Leviathan and has brought it under subjection, that this is how God has ordered creation. Now there's a passage, I apologize for not writing that down right there, but it's in Psalm 74. Is that the right one? I think that's, yes. Psalm 74 is one of those that's kind of a creation psalm, and it talks about that, about how God has conquered Leviathan and ordered creation. It's where this is another one of those Job going, why is this even here? All I see is this misery And if that's all there is, then why have you done this? It's incredibly powerful. And maybe at this point, if we have this picture in our mind, which I do, and I know I'm weird, but I have this picture in our mind of God sitting there and the adversary saying, is Job going to hang on? That the adversary at this point is going, after those first two times when Job says, yes, I am, right? Blessed be the name of the Lord. We'll accept evil from God if that's what he sends. But now maybe the adversary is going, okay, he's moving my way. Maybe he's not going to. But still, Job does not curse God. I've read some places going, he's splitting hairs pretty fine, but he's not doing it. And he's creation, God's work. I'm going almost calling for a reversal of that, but he is not at this point really saying much against God. So we have those questions that he asked. Why? Why can I not just be at peace? Why can I not just go to Sheol? Sheol is the place of the dead. And in most Hebrew thought, the place of the dead is a place that is not a pleasant place. It's dark, and it's a place that is untouched by God. And I think it's interesting that that's where Job wants to be, because he thinks that this is what's happened to him now, that God has touched him in this way. If I could just get out of his reach and not be touched, maybe I could get some rest. Maybe I could get some relief. That he seeks death but can't find it. And it's a pitiful place where we find Job. All right, now I want to look at the response of Eliphaz. Eliphaz the Temanite answered and said, if one ventures a word with you, will you be impatient? Yet who can keep from speaking? Okay, I'm going to stop there for just a second. Last week we kind of made the point that sometimes what we need is to be present. That the three friends for the 7 days do a really good job of just being there. But it's when they open their mouth they seem to get in trouble. I don't want to be too hard on these guys just to start with, because if he heard the same things that I think we heard from Job in chapter 3, he's going to speak up. He believes that this, he like us, believes that this is God's good creation. Why would you want to reverse that? And I'm wondering if he's thinking that Job is also getting pretty close to crossing the line. And go, hold on, if somebody was to say something to you, will you be patient with me? But who can stop from speaking? That's his question. If you're going to throw this out there, don't expect me not to respond. And so he does. All right, we have this tension. We talked about this in the introduction. We have the three points of tension in this, and this is how we're trying to navigate Job. You have God's justice. God is always just and God is always righteous. And you have Job as righteous. And then you have, over here on this side, you have the principle that they all believe to be true. The retribution principle. If you do good, you get good. If you do bad, you get bad. There's something really biblical about that, the law of sowing and reaping. But we believe this is the way humanity works. And as long as those things hold, as long as Job is righteous, then God is just and the retribution principle is fine. If something is going on with Job, then that means one of these others must be out of whack, either God's justice or the retribution principle, and we're going to watch who goes to defend what corner. Job is going to defend his corner. They say, I have not done anything. There's nothing that should have happened to me because, my life was not something that should cause this. And so that only leaves those two for us to look at. And the three friends are going to go by what they know. What they know is, what holds them together is the way the world works, is that the retribution principle is right. And so they're going to go and defend that with all they have. Now, in this first time that Eliphaz speaks, he is not going to openly accuse Job of sin. He will later. But he starts from the principle of this is the way it is. And it's this tension that makes the book. All right, so here we go. Behold, you have instructed many. You have strengthened the weak hands. Your words have upheld him who was stumbling. You have made firm the feeble knees. But now it has come to you, and you're impatient. It touches you, and you're dismayed. Is not your fear of God, your confidence in the integrity of your ways, your hope? Remember, who that was ever innocent perished, or where were the upright cut off? As I have seen, those who plow iniquity and sow trouble reap the same. By the breath of God they perish, and by the blast of his anger they are consumed. The roar of the lion, the voice of the fierce lion, the teeth of the young lions are broken. The strong lion perishes for lack of prey, and the cubs of the lioness are scattered. Now a word was brought to me stealthily. My ear received whisper of it. Amid the thoughts from the visions of the night, when deep sleep falls on men, dread came upon me and trembling, which made all my bones shake. A spirit glided past my face, and the hair of my flesh stood up. It stood still, but I could not discern its appearance. A form was before my eyes. There was silence, and I heard a voice. Can mortal man be right? Can mortal man be in the right before God? Can a man be pure before his Maker? Even in his servants he puts no trust. His angels he charges with error. How much more those who dwell in houses of clay, whose foundation is in the dust, who are crushed like a moth. Between morning and evening they are beaten to pieces. They perish forever without anyone regarding it. Is not their tent cord plucked up within them? Do they not die, and that without wisdom? I want to stop there for just a second. And so here's, as Eliphaz begins, he goes, okay, listen. You need to hang in there, Job. I mean, he's really calling for him just to hang in there. You yourself have dealt with people in this situation. That's what I take from here. You've instructed many, strengthened the weak hands, upheld from those who were stumbling, and made firm the feeble knees. You've been where I am. Eliphaz almost says, right? You've sat in my chair, and you've instructed. But now that this is touching you, now you're impatient. And boy, is that ever true. Isn't it easy? Isn't it easy? It's not pleasant, but isn't it easy to sit with others who are going through this and of going, just hang in there. And we can throw out things, good things, Bible things. The Lord gives, the Lord takes away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. And we can do that kind of thing, but when it comes to us, doesn't it look different? Doesn't now it go, okay, now it's me that's going through this. Eliphaz says, okay, listen, you need to hold on. He defends what he says. This is what I know. This is what I've seen. That God upholds the righteous, destroys the wicked. Right? This is what I've seen. This is how the world works. So Job, maybe you just need to hang in there a little longer, and this will be made right. Now, his words really do, there's a little prophecy to this, because if we've peeked at the end, we know this happens. But at this point, we don't know. Maybe this is God working on you. Maybe this is God showing you what life could be like if you don't fear Him. Isn't the fear of God your hope? This could be what life could look like if you were to continue down that road. Maybe this is a temporary thing that God is doing to teach you something. What Eliphaz doesn't know that we know from the rest of the book is that that's not the question. The question is, why does Job fear God? Because of who God is, or because of what God's going to give him? So that's where we go. And if it's not enough, you go, I've seen this is how the world works. Then he says, not only have I seen it, okay, I'm putting words in his mouth, so forgive me. God told me. I had a vision. Spirit that came by my face. The hairs on my body all stood up. This vision stood still. I couldn't make out what it was, but it had to be somebody important. And they said, this is how it works. Can man be righteous before God? God who doesn't even, the word here they say is trust, and I don't know if that's a good translation, but it doesn't even trust his angels. If we follow the biblical story, we know that especially places like Jude and 2 Peter, where the angels who did not keep their proper domain, God has sentenced. But if even those who are in his presence will rebel, how much more are those of us who live in these jars of clay? So maybe there is something. He's not coming out yet and saying, okay, Job, there's a problem. You just haven't admitted it. But so if not only if they can't be righteous, then what makes you think you can be? Be still, this is just temporary. I'm interested, and I bring this up just kind of as a point of reference because I've looked through the text and I can't find it on my own. I have the Jewish Study Bible credits verses 12 through 21 of chapter 4 to Job. They say these are Job's words. It doesn't make much sense to me in the flow of everything, and I don't really know where that comes from. They seem to think there's a different quotation here that is placed in, and these are Job's words, and then Eliphaz will respond again in chapter 5. But I don't really think so, because I think what we see here is Eliphaz beginning the defense of his corner. Right? He's going to be in his corner. The retribution principle is right. I've seen it. I've seen it work. Not only that, God told me. Or I received it in a vision that it works this way. So he's going to hang on to that. And he keeps on going because he's not done yet. Call now. Is there anyone who will answer you? To which of the holy ones will you turn? Surely vexation kills the fool, and jealousy slays the simple. I have seen the fool taking root, but suddenly I cursed his dwelling. His children are far from safety. They're crushed in the gate, and there's no one to deliver them. The hungry eat his harvest, and he takes it even out of the thorns, and the thirsty pant after his wealth. For affliction does not come from the dust, nor does trouble sprout from the ground. Man is born to trouble as the sparks fly upward. Again, he hasn't come right out and said, oh yeah, Job, you got a problem. But if you do have, I wouldn't be surprised. If even the holy ones, if even the angels can have a problem, how much more of those of us of humanity? This trouble doesn't come out of nowhere. Man's born to trouble naturally, just as sparks fly upward. This is how life works. So are you going to go to one of the holy ones? Are you going to go to one of the angels? And this may be where those say Job's words were the one of the vision, that I've seen the holy ones and about that kind of thing. So which one of them are you going to go to? That's his question. And then it goes, as for me, I would seek God, and to God I would commit my cause, who does great things and unsearchable, marvelous things without number. He gives rain on the earth, sends water on the fields. He sets high those who are lowly, and those who mourn are lifted to safety. He frustrates the devices of the crafty so that their hands achieve no success. He catches the wise in their own craftiness, and the schemes of the wily are brought to a quick end. They meet with darkness in the daytime and grope at noonday as in the night. But he saves the needy from the sword of their mouth and from the hand of the mighty. So the poor have hope, and injustice shuts her mouth. Behold, blessed is the one whom God reproves. Therefore, despise not the discipline of the Almighty. For he wounds, but he binds up. He shatters, but his hands heal. He will deliver you from 6 troubles. In 7 no evil shall touch you. In famine he will redeem you from death, and in war from the power of the sword. You will be hidden from the lash of his tongue, and shall not fear destruction when it comes. At destruction and famine you will laugh, and you will not fear the beasts of the earth. For you will be in league with the stones of the field, and the beasts of the field shall be at peace with you. You shall know that your tent is at peace. You will inspect your fold and miss nothing. You will know that your offspring will be many, and your descendants as the grass of the earth. You shall come to your grave in ripe old age, like a sheaf gathered in its season. Behold, this is true. We have searched this out. Hear and know it for your good. I've seen this. And Job, if the suffering is your issue, you need to go to God. Now, maybe the first bit of advice that's been good, right? You need to seek God in this. That's a hard thing. And it's probably a hard thing for Job. Job believes, and you and I know from reading the first two chapters, that there's something to this, that God has done this, or at least allowed this. And Job goes, why would I go to him? I mean, I wonder if that's through Job's mind. Why would I go to him? This is where this started. Maybe it's no wonder that Job says, I would rather be in the place of the dead where God doesn't touch. If this is what he's done to me, and I've not done anything wrong, then why? Why would I want to go there? Eliphaz says, God's probably disciplining you. So you need to learn something from it. How is that helpful? I just wonder, and I'm thinking kind of out loud here as we go through this. Is that helpful? If you and I are sitting with somebody who is in that position, is it helpful to go, are you going to learn something? Probably not right off. Huh? Especially when I go, you need to take this to the one who just took your children and your riches and now your health. But in all this, he's still in that corner, right? Eliphaz is still in that corner of the retribution principle. We've searched this and we know this to be true. And the problem is that it's not. Ultimately, yes. Ultimately, there's a time when God makes it all right, and the enemies of God are punished. But the question is, why? Why would we worship him? Is it because of who he is or because of what he's going to give us? And what God's after is for Job to say, I'm going to serve him. Whether or not I have all these lands, whether or not I have all this wealth, whether or not I have all this posterity behind me, all of the things that make for me being successful in the place where I am, if you take those, I'm still going to serve God because that's the only hope. And on the other side, the question is, will we really? The accuser says, the only reason that you've done this, the only reason he does this is because you've hedged around him. And Job in chapter 3 goes, yeah, there's a hedge. But it's keeping me from going in the right way. What I've walked all my life is the path of righteousness. Now God has hedged that way in and I can't get there. Instead of protection, now it's a siege wall. And I can't get out. And Eliphaz says, well, you should seek God. This is probably discipline. But what we know to be true, Job, and Job is having to wrestle with this same tension, is that if you've done good, you get good. If you've done evil, you get evil. So either we're not going to question God's justice, but we are going to question your righteousness. Years ago, I think it was Ross Cochran was talking something similar about this. Similar, he's from Harding, and he plays the bass, plays the upright bass. And he says, you know, between the bridge and the tuners is where all the tension is. And without the tension, you don't get the music. Without the tension, you don't get the beauty. There's something to be said about life that would say to God, I'm yours no matter what. We see that in the life of Jesus. That no matter what, being faced with the most horrific death that we could think of, says, no, I'm yours. And there's something about that, and there's something that's really biblical about that, where Jesus says, if I'm lifted up, I will draw all men to me. Something about that beauty of this in the most horrific thing. But there's something beautiful about it. It's a thing about beauty, and I think about beauty in music and that kind of stuff. When we hear a song, and we go, man, that song's beautiful. And before long, when we listen to it again, we want to sing with it, right? We want to be involved with it. Same kind of thing that we see here. We go, wow, that's beautiful. And then the more we're drawn to it, the more we want to be in that beauty. And what Job is trying to tell us is that there's beauty in this tension of serving God even for nothing. I may never get rich, may never be famous, may not have lands and cattle, I may not have, offspring. My family reunion may not take up an entire hotel, but I'll serve God anyway, because He's the one who said, I want you. We're going to continue next week by looking at Job's response to this. Job goes on for a while, and then we'll meet the second friend, Bildad, in chapter 8. And as we continue on, the tension continues to build with that question that still hangs over: which way is he going to go? Is Job only serving God because of his benefits, or is he going to serve God because of who he is? So let's have a prayer, and we'll close. Father, we love you. Sometimes it's hard. Sometimes when we feel like we've been treated unfairly. And sometimes we wonder, maybe we wonder it out loud, and maybe we just wonder inside if you really care, if you really love us, if you're the cause of this. Father, help us to see you as the one who is always right, even when it's difficult. Help us to see you as the one who has loved us and has gone to great lengths to be with us. Help us to see you as the hope, the source of life, the only hope that we have. And help us to focus every day on just following you and just being more like you. Whether that results in in blessings as we often think of them, whether it results in fame and notoriety and wealth, or whether it results in being outcast. Help us to follow you anyway. We're thankful so much, Father, for what you have left us to find. We're thankful for the entire book of Job and what it teaches us and how we can live wisely. Help us to follow you a little more closely today than we did yesterday. Help us to be transformed into the image of your Son, and it's in his name that we pray. Amen.